everyone. Today we're going to cover a project analysis on Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard. Right, so a lot of people might be wondering, if you want to buy something in the city, should you be looking at Orchard up north on the Orchard side towards the whole Orchard belt, or should you be looking at River Valley, whether it's for own stay or investment, right? I think for own stay, a lot of considerations would lie around where you would like to stay, but Orchard versus River Valley is actually, in terms of pricing as well, which later I'll cover, there is a range, right? But for own stay, actually, I think the emotions and the feel of living there is totally different between the two. Okay, so later I'll cover a bit more about the price points and what you can think about in terms of considering that between the two. But here at Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard is one of the first GLS that you see in the prime Orchard area, and there is this thing called the land betterment charge, right? Where the developers actually price and value the land a little bit more expensive than normal. So in that way, the developers are actually taxed higher to buy this piece of land, right? So generally speaking, it's a little bit more prime, the pricing there is a little bit higher, but later I'll show you where we are at Orchard Boulevard, and is Upperhouse is a good one to go for. So let's get started. I'll go through the facts first. Right, so I went through your location fact sheet. If you don't know where Orchard Boulevard is, let me go through that with you later, right? So then we have a good landscape of between Orchard and River Valley, right? I think the main concern here is today, if I want to buy something in the city, should I go for Orchard or should I go for River Valley? Because River Valley has 4 more plots coming up, including our Robertson Opus, that's 5 plots coming out in the River Valley area. Which one is the best choice to go for, right? So I'll be doing a project analysis on all the 4 projects in River Valley. I've already done one at Opus, so if you want, you can go check it out on my channel as well. But today we'll be covering one of the most coveted addresses here in Orchard, and it's considered like a tier 1 address for the fact that the government actually price and value the land a bit more, and developers had to pay a bit more for it. So I'll go through a bit of location fact sheet. More importantly, I want to spend a little bit more time on the price comparison and the landscape, and then we'll go to the layouts, right? The layouts are quite simple. I would say there are not too many layouts to think about and to consider, but then of course I'll share a bit more insights on that as well. Okay, so here's the site plan. If you look at Orchard properties generally, you go to Lornie Hill, you go to Nassim, you don't see that there's a lot like mega big projects where you see 800 over units and all. So here we're sitting in a 301 unit kind of land, right? In terms of facilities, I think it's still quite not too bad, right? I think it's sufficient for residents staying here, right? So once you get into Orchard Boulevard, the MRT station is right here and it's already running. Once you get in, you get a good drop-off area and then down to the car park. What you have here is a lap pool. Okay, you got a gym as well. So I think in terms of lap pool, gym, I don't see anything that is lacking in that sense. They also have like spa, relaxation deck and all that. So those that are more lifestyle ones that you may not see in like outside central core regions, but you see here because it's a bit more luxurious in that sense, right? Coming in this area. Okay, so if you're wondering if the land plot is too small, right? Actually, it's quite common for the ones around the property, around the area like the Grange area or Nassim, right? They're all mainly the smaller ones, but here also fit for you 50-meter lap pool, right? So I think it's quite sufficient in that sense. One of the views that you can get, it's really facing the pocket views, right? This is something that you can see from the Orchard side. You can see that this area, the whole Chatsworth area, is filled up with GCBs. So in that sense, where I say it's a tier 1 sought after location, it's kind of like really prime in the middle of the city, but yet you don't get the noise or road noise and all that from too much bus going around the Orchard belt, but you get really peace and quiet when you get back home at the night. Okay, so like I mentioned, the unit mix is 300 over about 300 units. They are made up of 1 plus study, 2 bedroom, 1 3-bedroom premium, and 2 different 4-bedroom suite with private lift and also a dedicated car park lot for you. When we talk about 4 bedrooms in the bespoke collection, we're looking at the size at about 2,000 square feet. So I think in terms of looking at luxury, this is one of the epitome of luxury here already. So I'll show you the floor plan a bit later. Okay, so this Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard, this is one of the newest GLS that you see in the Orchard area, right? And it's 99 years, right? All GLS right now will all be 99 years. Okay, so this is a 99-year project right at an empty piece of land that has been vacant for a while now, right behind Orchard Boulevard MRT. Okay, the DOP is going to be 2029, so it takes about 5 years to build. Okay, in terms of residential car park lot, it's about 90%, I would say. But we also do expect some people to want to rent in the area, the 1 plus study and the 2 bedrooms as well. So that should be sufficient in terms of looking at car park lots, right? But if you're looking at a 4-bedroom, you do have a private lot dedicated for yourself, so you don't have to worry about that. Whether it's 1 or is it 2, right now I think it's dedicated as 1 because 31 private car park lots, but I'm sure if there's additional ones, you can also add them on as well. Okay, here's the site plan. Right, like I mentioned, they have a 1+ study, which is of a pretty good layout. 700 square feet, 2-bedroom, also an enclosable kitchen, dumbbell concept. And then there's another one that is 2 others that's 2+ study, 1 layout of the 3-bedroom, and then finally the 2,000 square feet 4-bedroom suite with private lift and car park lot. Okay, so I'll spend a bit more time on the pricing over here, right? Today, if you're looking at Orchard right on the top versus River Valley that's surrounded here, you realize that actually Orchard is less dense. River Valley is a bit more dense in terms of looking at the population, in terms of amenities. Of course, in River Valley, you also get more amenities, right? You got more shop houses to shop at. You got Great World City, for example, right? The River Valley plots are all surrounded by Great World City, and that's a full-fledged mall that you can go and get your groceries and all that. But in Orchard Boulevard, I think it's really looking at luxury, right? It's like, for example, it's like looking at Sentosa, right? Sentosa, it's a 10-minute drive from right outside. In there, you get a little small country club that has cold storage and all that is sufficient for your needs. But coming back to Sentosa, you realize that actually it's really quiet, right? There are units that are facing the sea directly, and that is something that you don't get in Singapore most of the time, right? Like, it's something that is exclusive to you, and some of it, the parts of the beach actually belongs to the development where you can go and walk around as well, right? So that part, that is a kind of luxury that you get in, is really like beachfront living. But in Orchard Boulevard versus River Valley, you see that actually Orchard Boulevard is really less dense. Coming back home, you know that it's going to be like a quiet place to live, and yet you are kind of one stop away or one bus stop away from the Orchard Belt, which has all the shopping that you ever need. Okay, so let me lay out the prices a little bit. Right now, today, if you look at the River Valley plots, there are 4 plots coming up, plus Robinson Uppers, but Robinson Uppers is 999 years, so I'll leave that out for now. Right, today we're looking at an estimated pricing of River Valley. We'll be looking at lower bound of 2005, and then upper bound, because there is another development called Promenade Peak that is 63 stories high. Okay, so higher bound, of course, we will see that it hits to 3,005 to 3,006 per square foot. Okay, and then if we go to Orchard Boulevard's estimated launch pricing, looking at the location, looking at what has been done in the area, and looking at Robinson Uppers selling at 999 years at about 3,002 per square foot as well, we estimate that Orchard Boulevard's estimated launch prices for 99 years would be around this range, right? So it is a gap between the lower bound of River Valley versus the lower bound of Orchard Boulevard, but there's also a good reason for it, right? So today we look at Orchard versus River Valley. This is Orchard Boulevard, where Upperhouse is, right? And then this is the River Valley plot, right? So this blue one is Great World City, where you have these plots all surrounding you. This one is going to launch as well very soon this year. It's called River Green. This one is going to launch as well around the same time. It's called Promenade Peak, okay? And it's 63 stories high. Okay, so if you look at Orchard on its own, and why is there like a price difference between the two when they're kind of right smack in the city as well, right? That's something we want to answer. But at the same time, right, when coming to Orchard Boulevard, we know that one is a tier 1 coveted address. You're really buying for the tier 1 address, and you know that here it's really more luxurious in the sense where it's low density. You know that you're living in a quiet and a serene neighborhood. And the other biggest point is that it's a doorstep MRT, right? So there's one stop to Orchard, one more stop to Great World for you as well. So looking at the kind of luxury that you can get in a quiet neighborhood, I think that would be the biggest selling point. And because it's a little more sought after for people who are not at all budget constrained, they're looking at more like living in luxury, and yet it's also surrounded by GCBs, right? So some parts of the view you can actually see the GCBs at Chatsworth area, which is one of the most prime GCBs you can get right smack in the city, right? So you get those for like 20-30 million bungalow houses over there. So here, I think coming to Orchard Boulevard, it's not so much of the pricing, but you deciding what kind of lifestyle you want before looking at whether you should go for Orchard Boulevard or River Valley. Okay, so let me look at a landscape of prices back in Orchard Boulevard versus River Valley back in 2020, right? So you see that this is Nassim is in Orchard, near Orchard Boulevard. River is in River Valley, right? Just right beside, along the Singapore River. When they launched at time, the TOP is also around the same time. When they launched at time, you see that the average per square foot, pointing you over here, there is about a 500 per square foot difference for a leasehold property. 9 years, comparing with the same launch price, that means if today I have option to buy 19 Nassim Hill or River, right, the prices are as such back in 2020. Okay, if you look at a freehold property, Avenue is at River Valley and Boulevard 88 it's at Orchard Boulevard, right? The average PSF is also looking at around 500 per square foot difference, right? So in that sense, right, if we look at the map again over here, we see that this is where Orchard Boulevard is, right? The whole Orchard belt, just now I drew a line, and then RV is here, Great World City is over here, right? And then there are a few plots coming up here, over on this side as well, over on this side as well. At this point of time, what we are seeing is that we can see prices that are going at about 2,007 per square foot, let's say on average, to 3,000 per square foot here. But here at Orchard Boulevard, you will be paying around 3,002 per square foot on average, and maybe even starting from, right? So there is a gap, and we know that that gap has already been there since years ago, right? That's why what we want to understand is, are people kind of accepting the prices over here? Which in fact, yes, because there are people that are buying, for example, which I'll show you later, there are people buying $3,007 per square foot at 19 Nassim, and then we want to understand if there is price acceptance in the area. If there is, then actually coming to Orchard Boulevard at 3,002 and maybe even paying the max price at Upperhouse, right, at Orchard Boulevard, you are actually not paying too much. Okay, so let's understand that a little bit, right? Before that, actually Orchard Boulevard, Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard is actually harmonized project because it's under GLS. Once they submitted the case, it's already the harmonized rule, right? So all these floor areas that you see, right, for the 1 plus study is a 474 square feet, but 474 square feet is your total usable space, right? So we want to understand with the effect of harmonization, because just now what I did was I compared with Vivre 18 Nassim. Those are non-harmonized projects, right? Those non-harmonized projects, we do want to cater into a reduction of saleable floor area by 6 to 7%, right? So if I just right smack in the middle 7% here to just do the calculation, right? If today a non-harmonized project like 19 Nassim or Vivre, right, they are at 1292 square feet of space in terms of the size, and they're starting at 3.038 million, right? That equates to about 2,003 per square foot. For example, right, this is just any property out there. Let's say it's at this kind of pricing, right? For a harmonized project, then I will have to minus off 6 to 7% or 8% of the space, right? And putting that same price out there, what is the per square foot? That's why today you see that all the harmonized projects, let's say side by side, right? Let's say we talk about Tembusu Grand and Emerald of Katong, we talk about Gem Residences and Ori, for example, right? The per square foot for Ori will definitely be higher. And how we want to measure this going forward and understanding it on both sides, right, is to just put that 7% number in your head, right? That means if today I'm deciding between Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard versus 19 Nassim, for example, right? If 19 Nassim is going at 3,007 per square foot, right, I will need to plus the 7%, right, because of the saleable area on a harmonized project, which is Orchard Boulevard, Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard, and put that per square foot to understand where you are in terms of comparing the two, right? Okay, so that's a per square foot difference. Now we're going to zoom in on that, and for the 1 bedroom plus study and also the 2 bedroom, I'll be comparing this harmonized effect on the prices here in this area, and knowing that actually is the price something you can accept or not. Okay, so let's get started on the floor plans, right? So this one plus study, it comes with a study tub over here, which is pretty decent, one concept kitchen here, and 1 bedroom, right? So I think this is a very typical concept for 1 plus study, where either the study comes in between here where you can put in a walk-in wardrobe, or it comes on the side, right? At 474, for them to be able to squeeze this kind of sizing in, I think is quite good. And more importantly, I think the price quantum here, if you talk about 2,009 per square foot to 3,005 per square foot, at this kind of location, I think the price point is actually pretty decent. Okay, of course, if you want to rent it out, I think the demand pool of renter for smaller units would be stronger at River Valley area versus here, where people are mostly families. They may be working at the embassies around the area, they may be diplomats, right, where they have their families over already, right? So when they have families over and you want to rent out something that's bigger, I think at Orchard Boulevard it will be definitely a little stronger in a sense in terms of demand, right? But if you're looking at a smaller unit, maybe what you can do is look at the River Valley plots as well if you want to buy this for investment and rent it out, and also be able to sell it at potentially for future buyers to be able to achieve a 3.8 to 4% yield, right? I think River Valley is still the place to go. But here we also see that at 19 Nassim, how does the pricing compare with the surrounding, right? So 1 bedroom at 19 Nassim is 538 square feet. Why you want to compare this is also because this 19 Nassim 538 square feet includes the aircon ledge and all that. So in that sense, you're paying a bit 6 to 7% more in terms of the space, right? So today, if I compare it and I convert it into a harmonized project for 19 Nassim, right, the prices here on average is already transacting at 3,007 per square foot. So for the 1 bedroom at 19 Nassim, if let's say I convert that with the harmonization effect, right, the price point is actually around the 2 million range, right, for example, right? Not much effect, but today I can actually get Upperhouse at the max price of 3,005. That means your high floor unit already 1.6566 mil, right? So from the price to sentence point of view, is 19 Nassim has already transacted at 2 million. Coming to Upperhouse at 1 plus study, same bedroom type at 1.6 million, actually is not that expensive. That means from that point of view of coming to the city, there are already people paying 3,007 per square foot. You are coming in smaller, paying a smaller PSF as well. Your quantum is actually much cheaper. right? So there is price acceptance in the area already to think about. So let's look at the 2-bed 2-bath right now. It's both 700 square feet, just one facing the roadside and the other one facing Green residences. But there is a gap. So here, in terms of looking at the facilities and also some of the GCB views, is actually quite pretty good. I like this layout because it's an enclosable kitchen, right, and a dumbbell concept, right? And the dining area, you don't exactly face the bathroom as well. So I think it's a very usable, nice 700 square feet worth of space. If it's for own stay for 1 to 2%, I think it's okay. And the price point here we're looking at is about 2 to 2.45 million, right? So your per square foot, I'm estimating about 2009 to 3004 per square foot, okay? And then yet again, we compare with 2-bedroom and I think Nassim at 800 square feet, right? Today, if I add on the harmonization effect, the per square foot for harmonization is always going to be higher because of the 7%, right? In this case, I think Nassim, here the per square foot, if I add on the 7%, right, is going to be about 3 million. But at Upperhouse, for a 2-bedroom at 700 square feet, I can be potentially getting it at a higher bound. This is a higher bound price at slightly below 2.5 million, right? So if people are already paying 2.8 for this kind of size in the area where it's also prime, right, coming in at Upperhouse at 3004 per square foot, which is what we are estimating to be, coming in at slightly below 2.5 million, we know that actually the price is already settled in this area and there's healthy transactions at this development as well. We should not be too worried about exiting for Upperhouse, okay? Another example would be Cascaden Reserve, the 2-bedroom there at 700 square feet with the harmonization effect. If I add that 7%, right, is about 3002 per square foot. Today, if I get Upperhouse at 3004 per square foot at also 700 square feet, I'm also only paying about below 2.5 million, right? So in that case, we know that because of a harmonized project, the perception is that the per square foot is a bit higher, but the quantum wise is still quite reasonable in that sense, right? If you compare with Nassim, coming into Cascaden Reserve, we see that the pricing is a little bit lower, but that is also because this is like a 1+ study instead of a full 2-bedroom, right? So I think coming into Upperhouse, you also want to understand for 2 bedrooms, we know that this dumbbell concept layout is very common in the OCR region, but not so common in the CCR region because some of the 1+ study to the 2-bedroom layouts, they are all pretty odd shaped, right? But yet the transactions are quite healthy and there are people coming in to pay 2 million for a 1-bedroom, for example, right? So I think coming in is not so much of a layout anymore, but more of like really understanding that this development, in terms of the facilities and all that it can offer you, is something that you want in terms of lifestyle, right? And then your future buyers will also want something like that, and then it will be a good answer for you to be able to enter. Okay, so the 2+ study has 2 different layouts, right? This one, you want to come in, you got a window in the kitchen, right? You got additional study with a full glass window over here, and then 2 bedrooms on this side and 2 bathrooms, right? So I think this layout is actually quite pretty decent. The other one that I would talk about is another layout here that once you come in, you get a kitchen also with the window, right? But there's a bit of wasted space in this foyer, right? It comes in as a longish living dining area, right? It's a portrait layout. I think not so much of complaints over here. So if I were to choose, right, I would choose the BPS1, right? That has the shorter foyer and then kitchen and then a portrait layout dining as well. I think this is a bit more in terms of the view and also the layout structure is a little bit more acceptable in the market, I would say. Okay, and this is coming in at about 2.2 to 2.6 million, right? Of course, if you can get a 2+ study over here at harmonized at 764 square feet at about 2.2 million, I think comparing to the rest of the market, I think it's a very, very reasonable price. So what's the price difference between a 2-bed 2-bath and a 2-bed plus study? Today, if let's say you're comparing between a 2-bed 2-bath and also a 2+ study, you want to know what's the price difference, right? So today, if I compare the same per square foot, you're paying about 220,000 more for an extra study and for windows in the kitchen and in the bathroom, right? So I think for this kind of difference is worth it also because the study is a full size, not a full size, but a full room instead of like a tuck-in area, and it also comes with the window, right? So between the two, I think because the people here coming into the market in this area, they are more for comfort than the price, right? So the value that they get here, I think is worth going for the 2+ study instead. Okay, now we come to the 3 bedrooms. There's only one layout for the 3 bedroom at 1012. I think it's a pretty decent size because the 1012, they can fit you a home shelter and also a WC and a small yard over here, right? And then it's a 3 good size. So I think for new developments this day, coming in at 3.28 to 3.74 million, I think the entry price is quite decent comparing to the rest of the market. Also because at the same time, if you want to rent this out and for new developments, I think it's not hard. If you want to rent out in short term for a while, you can also, because the only one in the development that has 3 bedrooms, because once you hop over to the next tier, it will be a 1,000 square feet more. Of course, the price is almost doubled as well. Okay. Lastly, we come to the 4-bedroom suite with private lift and parking lot, right? So there are 2 different layouts for this, but they're all of the same size. And there's the only reason and only difference is really in the living and dining area and where the balcony is situated, right? So if you look at this area over here, the living balcony comes in this way, and then the dining over here. So it's kind of like an L shape over here. If you look at the other one, right, it's more like a L shape as well, right? But the void area is different. It's the way it's kind of positioned inside the development itself, where one is a double volume ceiling, right? So this 4-bedroom suite, right, the even floors are all of the same layout and the odd floors are all of the same layout, right? So that's why when you go to see the show flat, you will also be able to understand the difference between the two. But I think the difference is not that much. You still get the private lift, parking lot. I think the room sizes are all the same. It's really just the orientation of how you want to be looking outside of your balcony, right? Either on this side or on this side. Okay, so the price point wise, we're looking at about 3.5 to 7.86 million, right? Previously, when we didn't have foreigner ABSD, right, I would think this would be super popular for among the foreigners, because one, they cannot be buying a landed property, right? So for them, what they want to go for in terms of luxury and space, they would go for a bigger square footage in a condominium apartment and manage that kind of sizing, because this kind of size is also rare to come by. Of course, in the city there are a lot, and later I'll show you the next slide. You see that actually the bigger ones are more profitable in the longer run as well, right? So I'll jump straight to that. So in the city, why I say that bigger floor plates are king, right, is because you see the sizes are all in the 2,000 over range, 3,000 over range, and 2008 range, right? And you look at the profit for, let's say, Nassim Hill residences, the smaller one over here, profit almost 4 million. The bigger one here is about 4.4 million, right? Okay, so coming into the city, you realize that actually for the bigger floor plates, the per square foot is actually much higher than the smaller ones. That's why in whatever pricing that I've indicated over here, the smaller ones actually start from 2009, but the bigger ones will start to inch up to the 3001 to 3005 kind of range, right? So today at Park Nova, if you see just behind, right, the prices have really gone up to 5,000 over square feet. So coming in, even though you're 99 years, right, there is a little bit of premium downplay with that. You are actually paying 3,002 to 3,003 for a brand new development, but yet you also know that for bigger floor plates, 3 to 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, and this kind of sizing, right, you see this kind of profit over here, right? So it can be up to 4+ million, right? And there are people willing to pay for the profit as long as you enter at the right price, and 2, you have a buyer that's willing to pay the 8 to 9 million coming to Singapore, right? So once, in my opinion, for bigger floor plates one, it's more of like you can buy to stay for a while, but once the foreigner ABSD has been lifted, I think the demand will start flooding back in. And this is where this bigger floor plates will really be king, because there will be people willing to pay your 8 to 9 million or even 10 million for this kind of space that is, one, newest in the market, and 2, are rare to find for bigger floor plates, and 3, in a very, very good location, and 4, also at the doorstep MRT. Okay, so here are my conclusions. Definitely there will be some premium facing. Some of them face the roadside, some of them along Orchard Boulevard, some of them face behind where you get the GCB view, right? But some of them will have a block view where you see Grange residences, right? But for profiles over here, it does make sense to go for a bit more premium facing, because we know that the people coming in here are more of looking at comfort instead of price. Okay, second point, converted address with MRT at doorstep, yet serene and quiet. This is quite a rare find, I would say, in the Orchard area, right? Either you're super far away from the city, no MRT, you gotta take a Grab out, or you gotta drive. But this one is really convenient, but yet it's also in a serene and quiet environment. Okay, so layout is not the most important here, right? If you zoom in on Nassim's 1-bedroom layout, actually it's not that quick. It's a little bit more like a studio, and it's kind of in a square shape, right, where everything is kind of compact together. It's really looking at price point and what the development can offer, right? So in this case at Upperhouse at Orchard Boulevard, I feel that because it's going to be a brand new development until you come 2029, and everywhere else will be good. It's going to be at least 5 years old to 20 years old, right? This will draw quite a bit of attention once it TOPs, because people looking at that are looking at really brand new facilities and all that. And that's why you see that for brand new developments, they actually rent out quite fast as long as there is enough demand in the market. So for River Valley, look at Martin Modern, right? The demand for rental is quite strong as well, because people are attracted to new facilities and new things in general, right? So coming in here, if you're going for the 2,000 square feet one at 7 million for example, 6+ million for example, it's really understanding that next time if foreigners do come back in to buy again, they will be pumping their money in, and they will be looking at big floor plates. plots to consider. Okay, so that's my last point, right? You see that generally, if you look at outside Central Core region, right, you see that properties there for bigger floor plates, the PSF is lower, right? But for this area, you see that for the bigger floor plates, the PSF is actually higher, and you see that in places like Bukit Timah as well, where the demand for bigger floor plates are huge. Right, and then that's why they can command this kind of price, right? So here in this area, I would say if you can buy something bigger, that will do you good in the long run. Okay, if you're going for something smaller and for rental yield, maybe looking at real value will be better in terms of looking at entry price and also rentability of the place, considering that there are more amenities in the area. Okay, so here's the end of my video. This is my contact number. You can pause this video and also scan the QR code to WhatsApp me directly if you're keen to check out the show flat. And if not, you can look out for my next videos on the River Valley plots. See you next one. Bye.